Hi, everybody. I'm Minister Raven Warren. I am here to share my testimony that I appropriately named I Shall Recover. I pray that this is a blessing to somebody and not just hearing me talk. I pray that this is really reaching somebody and hitting home for somebody because I know what I went through was real. And if I had somebody to testify and just be able to share what they went through, maybe my experience could have been different. So I pray that this is a blessing to somebody. Please, please, please see this as me being transparent and not being judgmental and, treating people differently. Let's just see this for what it is as a testimony. I've already prayed before this because, like I said, I want this to reach somebody. And I don't want this to just be just talking. I want this to really hit home for somebody. So I'm going to explain to you where I was and how I got to where I am now, so you can kind of understand why I named this I Shall Recover. Approximately about a year ago in November, it was November 15th. I'm sorry, November 11th, 2015, my oldest son, Kingston, we had a situation, and you can go back and look for that video with the entire testimony on it, and you can see why that was such a miracle. My son was 3 at the time, and he was either 2.5 or 3. And we took him to the hospital. And long story short, he had swallowed a quarter and had to have surgery to have it removed. The miracle is what it was and where it was lodged in his throat. If he could have moved, turned, with us not possibly knowing how long the quarter was in there or how he even swallowed it, could have killed him. So that was just a miracle in itself. We were so grateful to God. And that kind of started things getting out of control. The very next month, my husband's grandmother passed away. And I don't care how old somebody is. I don't care how long you've spent with that person. You're never ready for that person to go. So that was just like one thing after the next. The next month in January, my husband and I experienced a miscarriage, which was devastating to us, to any parent. um, you never want to go through that. And it was a very devastating situation for us. And I don't even know what to say about that. It was, like I said, one thing after the next. And I don't know. I just couldn't take it. But God delivered us. God healed our hearts. And we were able to move on and just continue with life and still seeing God as being God still being all powerful and all knowing, him knowing better than we do. And I even prayed about it. I said, God, I know that we aren't supposed to question you. I know that you know better than we do. I just ask you to help us get through what we go through, because I know it's not the fact that you go through a test, but it's how you go through the test. And my fear was displeasing God. So after, that situation, we were trying to recover from that. The very next month, my son Princeton, who was, I think, a year and a half, almost 2 at that point, was in the hospital for a week for asthma. And that was physically draining. You have to take off work and, seeing your baby not getting well. And even in that situation, I prayed and I said, God, what is it that they're not doing? They wanted him to get to like 4 hours before needing another treatment. He was getting to like 10 minutes before he needed another treatment. And I mean, around the clock, they were giving him treatments, couldn't figure it out. And I prayed, I said, God, give me wisdom to help the doctor, something. Somehow, we need some relief somewhere. I need an answer somehow so my baby can come home. And I didn't want him to come home until he was 100%. I prayed, and God told me to tell the doctor to give him an antibiotic to attack his cold first, and then maybe his wheezing would calm down. And Prince has been having this problem since he was about a month old. We started taking him to the hospital for shortness of breath and wheezing, and that's already frightening in itself. And I told his doctor, I said, maybe let's try like an antibiotic to attack his cold first. And then maybe that's like, because that might be aggravating his, what they call asthma. And I feel like that would work. The doctor said, okay, well, let's try it. We've tried everything else. She did it. He got out the next day. I'm like, come on, God. Like, I just felt like I didn't even know what to say at that point. Like, this is why I serve the God that I serve and why I do what I do for God, because I don't know how people make it without God. I honestly don't. I don't see how people can make it through life and not have a God to turn to. So that was another situation God pulled us out of. Following that, in March and April, my grandfather, who I don't even know what to say about my grandfather. For those of you who are watching that don't know, my grandfather is a bishop. He is the founder and pastor of Greater New Life Church, Church of God in Christ. He has always been my pastor. He is more like a dad than a grandfather. Our relationship has always been like this. It wasn't something that gradually started or gradually happened. We have always had this close relationship. And his health started declining and fast. He went downhill fast. And for my family, not even mentioning my church family, was in, total devastation, not knowing what's going to happen. That's sometimes the frightening part, is not knowing what's getting ready to happen. And we just continuously was praying, of course, and requesting prayers of others to help my grandfather get better. And it just seemed like one thing happened after the next. And it was a long, it seemed to us like a long process, but it really wasn't. Just in a matter of months, his health really declined. He was diabetic. He had so many health problems, but yet we still couldn't see that he was getting ready to transition. So my family, always comes together and make decisions together. And when my grandfather was going downhill, it got to the point where they said, it's nothing more we could do for him. At this point, he's already had a leg, both of his legs amputated. His body had been through so much. And of course, as his loved ones, we're like, do what you can to save his life. He wants to live. That's who he is. And it got to the point where they said there's nothing more that they can do. And of course, we're still believing and praying, God, we know you can do this, because he's been in this exact state before, prior, about 5 years ago, right before me and my husband got married. His health got bad and he had a leg amputated and, went through this whole process. And we call him Big Daddy. So that tells you right there, this man was our hero. He was our Superman. There was nothing that we needed that we couldn't turn to him for, or that he couldn't fix. And now he's on his deathbed. Like, it didn't make sense. None of this made sense. I'm like, in my mind, like, God, this man served you blood, sweat, and tears for years. Why is it that you're allowing your servant to get to this point? Not realizing that God always has a plan, whether we understand it or not. We all have to follow his divine plan. And it got to the point where they said there's nothing more they can do. We brought him home. We took care of him. We did everything that we could for him. And it got to a point where God said it's time for him to come home. And the days prior, in those 9 days he was home, God was ministering to me, letting me know he was getting ready to take him. All the signs were there, and God was ministering to my heart, letting me know he's not, going to be here much longer. And to the point where I would talk to people on the phone that were calling friends and family, like, oh, we're going to come see him and whatever. And I'm like, he's not going to be here when you get here that day. Like, that kind of talking. Like, I knew he was going, but my heart wasn't listening to what my mind logic was saying. And the day my grandfather transitioned, my mother and my mom was his primary caretaker. We did everything that we were supposed to do for him, and my whole family just really came together and did what we were supposed to do for him, because he deserved that. And it really didn't hit us at first, me and my mom, and we didn't react immediately. But there, shortly after, it hit both of us. And about that happened June 9th. November 3rd was his birthday. So that whole week surrounding that time, I fell into a massive depression. And I could go days without crying. I could go see him and not cry. And just, I would have moments, they always say that first everything is the hardest to get through. And I would go to places that I've seen him or something that remind me of him and would set me off. But I would bounce back. So this past week and a half, 2 weeks, I just fell into a depression, not even realizing I had let my guard down spiritually. I really stopped praying like I should have, really being consumed in pity, being consumed in grief, um, and thinking, okay, my heart is broken, more so being saturated in grief than really utilizing the tools that I've been taught my entire life that he taught me. I literally fell into a depression. Then I physically got sick, and I'm still trying to recover from like this cold, sore throat. Every time something happens, the devil always attacks my throat, and I'm still trying to recover from that. But physically feeling under the weather and emotionally drained, spiritually not where I'm supposed to be because I'm not building myself up like I'm supposed to be. And it got so bad to the point where I wanted to take my life. I wanted to commit suicide. And I've never been that type of person. I've never had suicidal thoughts. I've never really battled depression like this before. So this was all new battleground for me, and I'm just overwhelmed at this point. Prior about 2 weeks ago, with everything just seemed like it's just building up, and I just like the devil was really talking to me. Why live? You're so hurt, and you've been through all these just constant trials and tribulations. Why keep fighting? So I just felt I was about to break. I said something has to change, and my husband would always kind of minister to me and tell me, you need to get to that place in God where you know you need to be, where only God is going to get you through this. And it really hit home. And when I tell you, like, the thought of suicide was so real, I knew the day I was going to do it. I didn't consider what was going to happen to my family, because that's how the devil wants you to be. He wants you to be to a place where you're numb to common sense, number one, to reality, that I have a beautiful life. I have a husband that loves me and takes good care of me. I have two healthy, beautiful, funny little boys that I know God is going to continue to raise up to be mighty men of God. I know that whatever my future is, all of that I am willing to forfeit because I want to take my life. And that's how the devil worked. And I said to myself, I need to pray. And to the point where this is how the devil works. He wants you to be so convicted that you don't even feel worthy enough to pray and ask God for help. And I said, all these prayer warriors, all of these people that love God and have a genuine relationship with God around me, I don't even want to even ask them to pray for me, because I don't even feel like I'm worthy enough to pray for myself. And I felt like I was just literally scraping the bottom of the barrel. I didn't recognize myself. Now, I've known that there's a purpose for my life since I was a young child. I knew something was different about me. I knew I was peculiar. I knew I never fit in with the crowd. And I just reminded myself of that I have to come out of this. There's no way I can allow all of these things that I've been through to weigh on me to the point where I feel like I can't take life anymore, and I'm willing to take my life. And I woke up one day, like my husband, he prayed for me for my physical well-being, that I would feel better and whatever. And I know secretly he was praying for my mental state of mind as well. And one morning I woke up, I couldn't talk because my throat was literally just dry, scratchy, closing up. And out of nowhere, because for those who don't know me, I love to worship. So like I said, every time something happens, the devil wants to shut my mouth so I can't worship. So out of nowhere, I'm telling you, it kind of scared me. I just opened my mouth and began singing. And like I said, it scared me. I'm like, I couldn't even talk a few minutes ago, and now I'm able to sing my praises unto God. And when I did that, I felt instant relief. I didn't even realize I lost my joy. Going through everything that I was going through this past year, I would go through something and I would feel like, okay, I'm out of it. And I would try to regain my joy back, and it would go right back down the next time something else happened. When you lose your joy, I could laugh, I could smile, but I was wearing a mask. I wasn't honestly showing how I was feeling inside. Yeah, I'm smiling. Yeah, I'm making other people feel beautiful. Yeah, I'm laughing and laughing and talking to other people. But on the inside, I feel like I am dying. And with that day, I don't know if my husband prayed, I regained my joy. I don't even know if I subconsciously did it. I don't know. But when I woke up that morning, I'm telling you, I felt like the clouds were removed. I felt like I could see sunshine. I felt joy in my spirit. I felt uplifted. I felt like a whole nother person. And to the point where it kind of scared me. I'm like, how can I go from trying to take my own life, with the thoughts, not acting, but the thoughts of trying to take my own life, to feeling like a whole nother person, feeling renewed, feeling rejuvenated, feeling restored, feeling like the old me, feeling like who I know God has called me to be. When I tell you, I feel so much better. I can't even explain it. And that might sound silly. It might sound crazy to some people. I can't even explain it, but I feel like a whole nother person. And I know it's nothing but the power of God that has changed my life and changed how I feel. And I want to give you a few passages of scripture to help you get through what I got through. First, I want to kind of like remind you of who you are, which is 1 Peter 2:9, that we are a royal priesthood. When you give your life to Christ, you have now been adopted into the family of God. You are now a kingdom citizen. You are no longer a resident of this earth. We are just here visiting. So you have to understand who you are. And that's the first thing the devil wants to change your perspective on, is who you are. He wants you to have an identity crisis, because if you don't realize who you are, then you don't realize the power that you hold, the power that's in your mouth, the power that you have the ability to be able to speak these things that be not as though they were. You can change how things happen by what comes out of your mouth. If you don't know who you are, you don't understand the power that you hold. So that's the first thing that the devil wants to attack. So go and read 1 Peter 2:9 and read about being the royal priesthood, being a peculiar people. We are supposed to be different. We're not supposed to fit in with the world. The next one would be Joshua 1:9, where it talks about it says, be courageous and be strong. Don't be afraid. Don't be dismayed, for God is with you wherever you go or whatever you go through. So I got to remember, and even encouraging myself, when I'm going through losing people, into their transition into heaven, when I'm going through something where I feel like it's strenuous, my children are ill or I'm ill, I cannot be weary. I can't give up. I have to be strong. I have to be courageous. And actually, in that passage of scripture, in that book of Joshua, if you go back and read that chapter, it says be courageous and be strong multiple times. So that lets us know that there's going to be times where we do feel weak, but God is encouraging us to be strong and be courageous and do not be dismayed. So when you're going through something, remember that it's not you going through by yourself. God is with you through everything that you go through. And that might sound harsh. That might sound weird. You may not understand it. Even if you can't see the hand of God, he's still moving. He's still behind the scenes doing what he needs to do in order for you to live a happy, joyful, successful life in this world. It's important to stay built up through your prayer life, having a connection to God, having a relationship with God. It's important to fast, that you are able to be closer to God. So turning down food or anything that you feel like might be holding you back from having that close connection to God. Remember to put on your full armor. If you read Ephesians 6:10-18, it gives you the exact details of what the armor of God is and why exactly you are supposed to put on the whole armor of God. Avoid distractions. Stay in fellowship with God. Stay in fellowship with other believers that will help uplift you and encourage you. When you aren't doing these things, you have pretty much let your guard down. And that's what I did. And if I can help somebody not go through what I went through, then this testimony was worth it. And when you have let your guard down, you have now made yourself available for the enemy to attack you. He's not going to bother you when you're just fine. But when you are actually striving and reaching for God, then you can expect attacks of the enemy. Then you can kind of look for his hand, because he's going to show his head. That's his job. That's who he is. He's going to do it. So the kind of question is, are you going to do your job? Are you going to utilize your weapons and the equipment that God has given you to be able to make it through out of your test, out of your trials, and out of the test that you go through? John 10:10 just kind of blows me away when I was actually praying about giving this testimony. And where it talks about the thief cometh not but for to steal, to kill, and to destroy. I named this, I shall recover, simply because I had joy. And out of everything that I went through, I allowed the devil to steal my joy. So when I read this, I'm like, the thief cometh not but to steal, to kill, and to destroy. He wants to steal your joy. He wants to steal your peace of mind. He wants to steal the peace in your household. That's who he is. That's what he does. He wants to kill your faith, your belief in your ministry or your purpose, your calling. He wants to kill your dreams. He wants to destroy your life. He wants to destroy your future. So my point in all of this is, are you going to allow Satan to do his job? Or are you going to be on your assignment? Are you going to utilize the tools and equipment that God has given to you to make it through these things? God knew we was going to face these trials and tribulations. God knew what was going to happen before the world was even created. He knew you were going to need him. He knew that this life was not going to be easy. And my husband and I were talking about these end times and how things aren't the way they used to be back in the day. And now we have to, deal with so many other things that people back, our ancestors, didn't have to deal with. And kind of like saddened me when I'm like, God, now you you knew I was going to be during this time and, going through all the hardships and, everything that I'm going through. You knew that I was going to be going through this. And the more I prayed about it, and it's not funny, but it's funny now. When I look back on it, I'm like, God put you here because he could trust you during these times. He equipped you for these times, and we cannot fall apart. And we have to utilize the tools that God has given to us and not fold under pressure. And I pray that this has been a blessing to somebody. Suicide is so real. And there's been so many people around us dying. So many people are dying from cancer, from overdosing. It's insane how much we are hearing about people leaving this world. And if I can encourage somebody to change your life right now, then this whole testimony, me putting all my business out there, not being concerned about pride and people knowing what went through my mind, because I know I'm not the only person that battles depression or battled suicidal thoughts or battled whether they should continue living or not. I know I'm not the only person that has ever dealt with that. You keep living and you'll see. You go through so many things. I'm sure that the devil will use that same tactic to attack you as well. So I am praying, if somebody could change their life right now, if somebody could say, I am tired of going through the same thing over and over and over again. Not saying that when you give your life to Christ, life will be perfect, because you are still going to have storms. But the point is, you have God to carry you through your storms and get you through your trials and tribulations. If that is you, if you are that person who said, I have had enough, I can't take it anymore, you're ready for a change, you're ready for something different, then I beg and plead with you to change your life right now. All it takes is a simple yes to God. If you are one of those people that say, I have to see it to believe it, put God on trial. Say, God, okay, I'm going to give you 30 days to show your hand in my life. I guarantee you that God's word will not return into him void. He will show his hand. And it's not that for me, I know God is real. I don't have to be taught that God is real. I know that God is real. But for somebody who didn't grow up in the church, who didn't always have a relationship with God, and maybe that type of person that's a realist or have to see things to believe it, which is kind of silly because you don't see air, but you use it to breathe. You know you're breathing. So if you're that type of person, I beg and plead with you, give God a chance. I guarantee you God is going to show his hand mighty in your life. And I've known it to be true for myself. I've known it to be true for other people. Give God a chance. Just give God a simple yes. Say, I'll live for you, God. And I ask you to come into my life right now. Change me. Move on my behalf, God. And watch God move. I guarantee you. I pray this was a blessing to you. And I would like some feedback, guys. Please comment. Let me know if this touched you or not. I know that this was up for somebody. I don't know for who. I pray it was a blessing. I love you guys. And thank you so much for tuning in. And keep me in your prayers as I continue to pray for you. Be blessed. You are Alpha and Omega. We worship you, our Lord. You are worthy to be praised. You are Alpha and Omega. We worship you, our Lord. You are worthy to be praised. We give you all the glory. We worship you, our Lord. You are worthy to be